This is Wales for Europe, and we are here talking to Alison Woods, who's the Executive Director of NoFit States. Alison, could you tell us a little bit about NoFit States and what you do?
Absolutely. Well, this year we're celebrating our 40th anniversary. We are an international touring company that takes contemporary circus all over the world, and we also have a large community programme here in Cardiff.
Now then, you employ a lot of performers and technical staff as well. Tell us a little bit about the size of the company.
So the core team, we have a core team of 17, and then we employ people on a freelance basis to come in to work on projects. So over the course of a year, I'm going to say it's probably 70, 80 people are employed, something like that.
Yeah, and a range of different skills as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Different roles?
Absolutely. So we have the core team, we've got the teaching team, we've got the performing team, we've got the production and technical teams.
Now then, the UK left the European Union just over 5 years ago in January 2020. You would have had a lot of experience before that when the UK was part of the EU, and you've now had 5 years since Brexit of working in a different way. Can you tell us a little bit about how leaving the EU has had an impact on NoFit States?
Yes, unfortunately I would say the impact has been entirely negative. Before Brexit, touring into mainland Europe was as simple as going from Cardiff to Swansea or Cardiff to Bristol. There were no barriers, either practical or in terms of work visas and permits or anything else. And we've always had a business model, where we generate a lot of income from outside the UK and bring that money back to UK, and more specifically back to Wales, to subsidise what we do here. Brexit has made that very considerably more difficult.
In what ways? Give me some examples of how that's impacted performers, but moving equipment to the EU as well.
So we now need visas every time we employ anybody from the European Union, and that brings with it a significant cost. Once you include the cost of the visa plus national healthcare surcharge, that's about £1,000 per contract, an additional cost every time we employ somebody. One of the great advantages of the European Union, or membership of the European Union, was what was called the reciprocal healthcare arrangements. So anybody who was a resident of any EU country was automatically entitled to free healthcare in all other EU countries. So you didn't need medical insurance to go abroad, for example, assuming you were inside the EU. We now have to pay medical insurance for everybody, both when we bring people in and when we take people out. That's number one. Number two, the cost of transporting a production from one country to another has now become very, very considerable. There's something called a carnet, which is the equivalent of a passport for things. So when you are moving things around, every item needs to be on that passport. And if you imagine touring with a big top tent and a full production and all the seating and all the technical equipment and the costumes and the widgets that are involved in all of that, we're talking about thousands and thousands of items, each of which has to have its own passport to travel. That is a bureaucratic nightmare. Previously, travelling around Europe was, as I said, as simple as moving from Cardiff to Swansea. There was no bureaucracy to mention. The bureaucratic nightmare is now horrendous. And when Brexit first happened, it was very clear that not enough thought had been put into the rules or the practicalities, and so people, border force, people on the borders just did not know what the rules were. And a lot of people were being detained, trucks were being held in ports. The first year we went back into Europe, I mean, COVID delayed things a bit, but the first year we went back into Europe, our trucks were held, they were compounded for about 2 weeks. And nobody could tell us why.
Did that impact then on your timetable for touring?
Fortunately it didn't, because it was right at the end of the tour and the company were coming back into Wales to sort of pack up. It could have cost us hundreds of thousands of pounds if it had happened in the middle of a tour. What
about the impact on the 90 days out of 180 days?
Yeah, that's a nightmare. As a result, now with all freelancers, we've had to include a clause in their contract saying that they're not allowed to go on holiday to Europe prior to starting a contract with us. Because the 90-day rule, it doesn't matter why you are going into Europe. Whether you're going there for a holiday, for a business trip, for work, doesn't matter. So if you were to go on holiday to France for a week next week, that would eat into how much time you're allowed to be in France or in mainland Europe over the course of the next couple of months.
Does that mean that as a company you now tour less in Europe than you did
Much
before
less,
Brexit?
yes, because we now have to turn down bookings. Because as a company we cannot be there for more than 90 days. So we've got to reduce the number of bookings we take in mainland Europe.
And that then reduces the income from touring in Europe.
Absolutely.
And reduces the amount you're able to reinvest in the company and in community activities
here in Wales. Yes, absolutely,
Wales.
Very substantially. I think the overall impact is probably something equivalent to 10% of turnover, both in terms of lost income and increased costs per year.
If you could give a message to Welsh governments, to UK governments, about the sort of things that would make life easier for NoFit states, what would you say to them?
So Geraint Talman Davis had a brilliant phrase which I love, which is the single market of the mind. That there should be free movement, free association for artists, for scientists, for academics, for people who are involved in any form of intellectual or cultural exchange of any kind. We are lucky. We are relatively large. We can afford to employ people who just focus on navigating Brexit and the rules. But if you were an independent artist, if you were a small band, if you were a much smaller theatre company, you are really going to struggle practically to manage that. And the great thing about the cultural sector is that sort of speed of response, that mobility. Pre-Brexit, you are a band, a small band from the valleys, and you get a phone call saying, can you do next weekend in Berlin? Yes, I'm off, both. And that would keep you alive financially, that would help you to build your craft and your... That's gone.
Now the UK do talk regularly to the EU, and there are annual reviews of the current arrangements. If you could ask, one or two changes that the UK government could make to the current arrangements, what would you ask them to do?
I would say free movement of people for if you are coming here to undertake a contract of work. I can understand you might want to have restrictions in other categories, but if you have been offered a job in this country, or equally a British person's been offered a job somewhere else in EU, there should be free movement and unrestricted periods of employment on both sides, number one. Re-establish that reciprocal medical insurance, healthcare insurance scheme. That would make life significantly cheaper. Not just for people like us, but you are going to go on holiday. It's going to make your life easier and cheaper. Get rid of the 90-day rule.
Okay.
Very practical things, very practical things. And all of these things are possible whether we're members of the European Union or not. What is the agreement? What is the arrangement? Inside the EU is one thing. You're not in the EU, okay. But you can still negotiate what the relationship is like, how you're going to work together, how you're going to collaborate to make sure that everybody benefits, because at the moment everybody is being harmed.
Alison Woods, diolch yn fawr iawn am siarad hefo ni heddiw. Thank you very much for talking to Wales.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr.